Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the movie Sisu. And I'd seen that came out in theaters, and it has been on the kind of movie channels that I have, and I was able to on-demand it and watch it. Now granted, I kind of caught it at a certain kind of point, missed like the first 20 minutes, and then would always kind of catch it towards the end. But I was able to sit down and watch the whole thing through, and this is an okay movie. It's a kind of weird mashup that kind of gets the styles of Quentin Tarantino and the John Wick series with brutal kind of action and kind of fuses it together. It works well enough in the kind of beginning of the movie and the end of the movie, but it really gets into kind of weird bullshit kind of level territories, pretty much to the level of Fast and the Furious on certain kind of respects in the kind of middle. And I really wish that they would flesh out certain kind of motivations for the villains a little bit clearer in the film, because they kind of make weird, stupid decisions that are almost like the plot demands because we want this cool kind of thing to happen, rather than it being a kind of natural progression of character choices or whatever's kind of going on. So this film is set in 1944 while World War II is going on. Our main antagonists are the Nazis. Always a good choice for antagonists. And we see this Corpy dude who's in this Lapland kind of place. We get this whole kind of stinger of, since there was this pact between Finland and the Soviet Union, they have been trying to push the Nazis back into Germany. And that's where this kind of Lapland area is, where it's kind of that pushing pull kind of place. And we see that this dude has decided to kind of stay out of the war. So he pretty much just fucks around and is attempting to find gold. So that's pretty much the bulk of the first bit. And this dude doesn't talk until the end of the film. And the thing is, I don't think that that's really a negative. That just means that the lead actor really has to sell what's kind of going on through a lot of different kind of methods of like facial acting, movement, all that kind of stuff of what's going on. And that's a pretty hard job to do. Sometimes you've got other actors that are like Nicolas Cage, who are like, here's like my base rate. I don't say anything, and then just trying to act whatever kind of way possible without using dialogue. That's a very hard thing to do. But I actually really liked this actor, especially his physicality that he brought to the role, and then also him speaking at the end. Now, he pretty much fucks around, he finds a little bit of gold in the stream, and then starts kind of just like going everywhere, finds it, and is like, yes, I found gold! And then pretty much is going on his way to pretty much sell it or change it out. And then we see that he comes upon a Nazi platoon. Let's see. Yes, Waffen SS platoon led by Bruno. And they've been adopting a scorched earth policy, which is what usually happens in that kind of instance. But Bruno decides to let him off. He's like, fuck it, he'll die as he's going off towards that direction, whatever. But then he gets beset upon these other Nazis that are like, hey, and they find out he's got gold, and they try and take his gold, and he kills them all. And this kind of bit at least worked out well enough. The thing that gets kind of nutty is, at first, the action scenes I thought were decent enough. However, as we get further in, there's a lot of cutting and less reliance on kind of practical kind of effects and more on kind of computer generated stuff or like bullshit kind of things, and jump cutting in the action scenes. We see him brutally taking out these Nazis, doing a knife into the head for one, shooting a foot, and then like taking out and blowing up somebody else's head. He like takes them out pretty ruthlessly because he's not brokering any shit. And then we also see that this Nazi platoon also has a truck full of women that they are raping and just using for their own sick, twisted means. Granted, as the film goes on, I believe that this group of women has the kind of most potential as a kind of story thing, and to have their own kind of stories of just like fucking around and taking out Nazis during World War II. Whereas Corpy's kind of stuff is kind of done by the end of here. Now granted, you could do some more on it because of his whole kind of legend that we've got. You could do a prequel with him. You could do an after thing with him. Anything like that. But then the villains don't really get much. They're just like... The thing is, Nazis are good antagonists to have because of the shitty things that they do. However, you also have to be like, yeah, this particular asshole who's leading these Nazis, you gotta do more motivation-wise to get him, because his main basic thing is he wants the gold to pretty much be absolved from war crimes. And at first, he's pretty much going through and utilizing his people and having like a strength in numbers kind of approach. And then he just is like spending them willy-nilly. And then towards the end of the film, shoots his tank driver for no discernible reason. If he was doing it to make sure that he had his gold or stayed safe or nobody would be able to connect him to being a Nazi, that's one thing. But it's not really clear why he did it. It's just like, alright. Because that's not what the movie's real objective is. The objective that I found was that Corpy is essentially like Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees. It's like a reverse slasher film where you're rooting for the slasher to take out the Nazis. Which, that's always an interesting kind of take to do with this kind of thing. So let's get more to the kind of story. He pretty much gets to a point where he's trying to escape. His horse gets blown off on a minefield, and granted, I think he should have been more injured. It's killed. His dog's alive, but I mean, it gets shot at and pretty much used as a grenade delivery device, but he's able to save it throughout the film, thank God. It's not a even one of the marketing ploys for this movie was, see this dog? It's gonna live throughout the film. Pretty much doing a play on kind of John Wick kind of stuff. But then we get the Nazis trying to fuck with him in the minefield, shooting him, him using his prospector thing as kind of a Captain America, Wonder Woman kind of shield. It's like, alright, him tossing a mine at a dude. The explosions of taking out the Nazis where Bruno sending them out to kind of find out where the mines are. Those effects were amazing. Corpy, towards the end, administering to himself all the different kinds of wounds and everything. That is amazing effects. But then we start getting into kind of more bullshit territory, which the minefield starts to begin that. Let's see here. Where was I going with that? Because then we get that. He also loses a dog tag, which the second in command gets info from the general that he is Koshai, similar to the kind of Baba Yaga. He lost his family during the Winter War, and he became pretty much a one-man Finnish death squad commando dude, where even the Finns were just like, fuck it, let him do what he's fucking doing, because he's taken out like hundreds, like over 300 Russians or whatnot, and dealing with that kind of stuff. And the general's like, we should continue retreating, and the dude's like, fuck that shit, I want that gold. So then they get to this kind of bit where they're trying to use dogs to kind of find him. He fucking stabs out. He gets under one of the vehicles, stabs it out, gets pretty much doused in gasoline, lights himself on fire at one point, which I don't think he would have been able to get to the river fast enough to not severely get hurt, and then starts this whole thing of where he's sending Nazis into the river to get his ass and get the gold. But he then starts slicing their throats and somehow getting air from it. It's a level of bullshit. It's like, it starts taking me out of this shit. It's like, alright. Because him utilizing the landmine to make a smoke screen and then tossing a landmine at a dude to blow it up, that is cool, but it doesn't make sense. That's the whole kind of thing. If you're going ball buster kind of crazy, you need to somehow make it into that kind of world where that kind of weird shit happens and isn't out of place. A good kind of example would be kind of any Tarantino movie. Kill Bill, Django Unchained, Inglourious Bastards. That's where stuff goes completely nutty and you're like, okay, I kind of accept it because it's the rules of the film. Same with the John Wick franchise. There's shit that happens on in there and you're like, what the fuck? However, Fast and the Furious kind of starts escalating to a point where you're like, this is just breaking every kind of rule that you even find a set before, so what the fuck am I supposed to even believe anymore? That's where this kind of starts getting off, where he's pretty much just taking them down, whoop, sucking them out, whoop, sucking them out, whoop, sucking them out. And this one dude starts leaving, and he's like, deserters will be shot! And then he shoots him, and it's like, and they don't even get into the point where it's like, you guys have deserted as well, what the fuck? I mean, that dude's having the logical reaction of, this man is murdering everybody. I don't want to be a part of this. And then they kill him, and then Corpy takes his body and uses it as a human shield, well, a dead human shield, against the wolf dude, which is the second in command who told him about the whole Corpy legend, as he got onto the tank and starts utilizing the big-ass gun, which should have rightly killed Corpy. I mean, a body would maybe be able to stop a couple of those rounds, but it starts shredding and shit, and he should have been pretty much dead. So Corpy then is pretty much at this burnt-out gas station, seeing all the burnt, scorched earth carnage, and then the... let me see here. Get a little refresh. Yeah. That's where they use the dog to find him with a stick of a grenade. He's able to save the dog, but he's like knocked out, and then the rest of them pretty much hang him. But he is able to utilize one of his bullet wounds to hang himself on a rebar before another plane kind of, just for some odd reason, another German plane just cuts down, and the one pilot dude's like, hey, kill the dude and kill the dog. And it like knocks him loose enough so that he's not dead. And then he kills the one dude and then uses the other dude and flies and gets in front of the tank. And this one head woman is pretty much being like, yeah, this dude. They also gave an explanation of Sisu in the beginning, which is this like untranslatable Finnish word that kind of means like almost unlimited courage and like indomitable kind of will when like all hope is lost kind of shit. And that's what he's doing. And it's like, okay. And he just flies it with the pilot, lands in front of the people, somehow kind of finding them. And he's like, this is the thing that I used to hang Corpy. It's like, everybody get out. But then Corpy starts going through, killing some more Nazis, people getting run over and shit with like gruesome kind of deaths, which I'm fine with, but make sure that it fits within the world that you're trying to set with your rules. You do need rules for what goes on. I mean, even slasher films like Jason, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, they have rules in what kind of goes on. And now granted, the quality of what kind of goes on is what gets hit or miss and what's kind of going on. But that's what you kind of need consistency-wise, and this is what kind of starts going nutty doodah in here. Like, the middle part of kind of getting to this part is just like, alright, I don't mind that we're using this as Nazi kills and just going kind of nutty doodah with it, but it's just almost kind of boring to a degree. We're not really getting much out of it other than, oh, this was a cool kill, and there's like, oh, and we're just continuing it on. It's like, alright, where's the kind of challenge kind of mode? That's where kind of John Wick excels when it does it well, because you know John Wick has skills, but how is he going to utilize them in this kind of kill box? It's kind of like what happens with very well done first-person shooters, because I can understand why people would be like, that's kind of boring, you're just shooting and doing the same kind of enemies, but how do you get out of that puzzle room? How do you take out the enemies? Where Doom really kind of excels in that kind of instance, especially with like the 2016 and Doom Eternal of like, how do I utilize my skills and my resources to get out of this room, kicking as much ass as I can? But we're getting closer towards the end. This is a 92-minute movie, about, so an hour and a half. And we see that Corpy's going through. He enlists the aid of the women, and, well, kind of. He gives them guns, and they kind of work together. And they take out the one group, just one truck. Corpy starts trying to fight the one dude. And this is where the action scene gets kind of nuttier as we get more kind of jump cutty. We also get a kind of continuity error where he utilizes his pickaxe to pretty much break the dude's arm. But later on, his arm is like completely fine with how Corpy's beating him, or also how the women capture him at the end and strap his ass to the barrel of a tank that they have now liberated and are utilizing to get to Finland. So he beats that ass. And the motorcycle people are like, Koshai, and they just leave it, and he takes the motorcycle and goes after Bruno. Bruno kills his tank dude, gets on the plane, they're like, fuck it, he's gone. But he gets on the plane, knocks out, and they're like, shit, this is fucked up. Corpy like had shot, and the pilot is injured. eventually to die. But then we get the Corpy fight with Bruno, which is pretty well enough. We have been kind of building towards this moment because Bruno didn't let it go, and he just ruthlessly beats him. But then we get the Nazi kill of the week, the badass one at the end, because they at least focus on the bomb, and Corpy straps his ass to a bomb, does it through the thing, the dude screams, "Fuck you," and then blows up. I do have to say that the effect of the explosion was pretty well done, and as a final coup de grace kill, nice, awesome. I acceptable, pretty awesome one. It's just getting to it, it's just like, that's my whole kind of thing. And then we get even kind of nuttier, where we don't know how far he's flown, but the pilot dies, and then Corpy straps himself in, he's got his gold back, and the plane crash lands. Now, at the beginning, you're like, he's crash landed into some dirt, so he'll be fine. But then we find out he somehow has been in a bog and somehow to dig his ass out. Being strapped into a plane that has crashed and then has crashed into a bog, trying to figure out how to dig your way out of wherever you're from would be the most horrendous fucking thing possible. And then he somehow goes back, finds the motorcycle from that kind of weird-ass airfield, finds his dog, is able to get to a bank, and changes out his gold, asking for bills because they wouldn't be so heavy to carry. Now, granted, I like that. And we also get a bit where the women drive, they pretty much get some information, they give the information, they're like, how the fuck did you get that tank? From the Nazis. Well, where are the Nazis? Except for this motherfucker, in hell. And then they're like, wow, okay. And it ends pretty much with Corpy getting his gold exchanged out of the bank. And overall, I at least got some enjoyment. It was interesting to have this kind of different kind of look at World War II and a kind of reverse slasher where you're rooting for the slasher. There's just, it falls into the bad trope of those kind of slasher movies where all they think is that the violence is the thing that kind of works out, but that gets kind of boring if it's done nonsensically to the rules that have been established, or just to the point where you're like, okay, you get diminishing returns after the first one, because sometimes if you get a certain kind of thing, it just kind of draws you out, and that's kind of what happened to me. Now, granted, if you enjoyed it, I'm happy for you. Like, that's good. I mean, I got enjoyment out of this as well. Especially with the beginning and kind of the end, I think that there needed to just be some more kind of reworking rather than, this looks cool and I want to kind of do it, plot and characters kind of be damned. It's a really kind of weird instance. It's almost to a point of not that the plot demands it, but that somebody demanded that this thing happened, and then they kind of had to go out from there, because even the plot's like, okay? Which is kind of a different kind of take. Normally, I'm like, the plot demands that he does this kind of stuff, but it's like, does it? Because it's kind of lengthening and padding out kind of stuff, which is a hard thing to achieve in a 92-minute film. I don't really like saying that it's padded out for those kind of reasons. Like, if this dude's the Immortal, if he's been turned to the Immortal, he knows how to take out people silently and effectively. This is where you get into a kind of thing of John Wick and kind of samurai movies and skillful masters that you kind of also see in Star Wars, of how a fight between two kind of groups go. Master on master, it'll be a little bit drawn out. But if it's master versus someone that really isn't that competent, isn't really that versed in the ways of death and destruction, they're going to go out like that. Like John Wick, the cannon fodder is how he gets through that kill room. It's not like how long John Wick is going to take this dude out. It's how he's going to do it and what he's going to do and utilize that to get his kind of advantage. We don't really get that with Corpy. It's more like, these are the different kind of kills we want to get through. Let's do this shit. And then not even thinking about the repercussions of what kind of goes on. Like Corpy having to get out of certain instances like the minefield and everything like that. Like the minefield's like, we want to utilize these to have blown up people. And it's like, okay, but how does Corpy escape out of this? It's like, he just tosses a mine, he hits another mine, and he's got enough smoke screen, and he uses his prospector shield to kind of get out. Okay, what about the river? He sucks up air from the dying breath of the gasping Nazis. Okay. okay, but that sounds really difficult to be able to do underwater. How does he escape from the tank gun? He uses a dead Nazi as a shield. They just didn't work out well enough for me and kind of would pull me out and kind of lessen my enjoyment from it. Even though I liked seeing him get his goals in the beginning and to help the women at the end, and then getting himself to the bank and getting his gold cashed out from all the shit that he's done. So everybody's looking at him like, Jesus Christ, this dude looks like he's been through fucking hell. But overall, if you're into action and a kind of reverse slasher kind of film, I would definitely recommend this. I don't feel of it as a complete waste of time whatsoever. There are other movies, shows that I've been like, wow, I really want that time back. Not with this. I at least had enjoyment seeing what was going on with the film, even though I think that it kind of is a slog more in the middle, and that it gets kind of better at the end as we start getting to the kind of climax. So I'd recommend this more on action scenes and the use of practical effects on things going on, not so much for the plot or anything kind of going on. But and then granted, if you're not into a lot of gore and stuff like that, don't watch this. You'll be like, oh. Though granted, it's not the goriest kind of thing or the most fucked up kind of shit that I've seen with certain kind of instances that would like affect your sleep, like the remake of The Blob. Ha! That shit's got some nightmare-inducing shit. Ooh, be careful. Like the Leviathan. That's something that really affected me as a kid, where it's like, hey, these people are mutating into kind of fish people and everything. It's like, oh god. Though I look at it now and I'm like, that thing looks fucking stupid. It's how age kind of helps you with that certain shit. This, if you don't really want to see blood, guts, and weird ass shit and things that are like, hey, these women are being raped, I would not recommend watching it. But other than that, if you're into this kind of stuff from what I've said, I think you will have an enjoyable time with this movie. So those are my opinions on the movie. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.